Howdy, howdy. This is Brian. How you doing? You know, I just found out. I don't know if it's called the G20 summit or whatever, but I think Biden and a few other folks, environmentalists, are planning on giving billions to third world countries for, because of global warming, how it affects them more greatly. Now, it's a compensation. Now, let's say we were to give the money to Haiti. The money could be used to support local thugs, dictators, and murderers. So the money that goes to folks is usually going to go in these third world countries to corruption. You're just going to be feeding something that's going to be like pouring water into sand, except they'll have more money to be more corrupt. So but if you go back 20 years, like in Haiti, then you can say, well, maybe if we would have given them the money 20 years ago, things would be better. So, but at that time, you had dictators and people squandering resources, whether it's timber or mining, for short-term profits without any long-term rules. So long-term rules matter. Now, today, Madagascar is more like maybe Haiti was 20 years ago. They haven't. Well, yeah, they've stripped a whole heck of a lot of that rainforest down, for short-term profits. And, it's a shame. Rainforests are more susceptible to degradation. What takes 300 years to really degrade a forest here can be done in 30 years in a lot of rainforests because it's only got 3 inches of topsoil. So if you're a ring-tailed lemur, hey man, I'm rooting for you. It's going to be really tough for you. So we need to, and if you're a subsistence farmer in Madagascar, like this one 25-year-old woman, she has 8 kids, 6 or 8 kids, 2 or 3 of them are starving. And she can't make enough, from subsistence farming because of the degradation of, she can't get enough crops. And so some of the kids are starving. And that's a lot has to do with management. So, like I've been saying on a lot of my videos, the Conservation Corps created by Franklin Delano Roosevelt that stopped the Dust Bowl in this country needs to be worldwide. You can't just throw money to corrupt dictators and expect them to do anything to make it better. Now, when you chop local rainforests down, you've screwed up local weather. So to say the global warming, it's more like 20% of the problem, and the 80% they're creating themselves. It's like a terrarium. Back in the 70s, everybody had the little plants, the terrariums. You put the water in, the water dribbles back down. You cut the local forests away, you screw up the local weather patterns. So don't blame it totally on the big boys in the global warming. But we definitely have to do better. We've had issues here ourselves. I remember back when Slade Gardner was the governor of Washington, he actually got the environmentalists and the local mill workers that make plywood so pissed that they were together saying, hey, quit sending raw lumber to Japan. So, that's when you got mill workers and environmentalists together. But the Japanese have always loved beautiful wood, and they would keep the nice stuff, and for years have been sending back, plywood and stuff. So I wasn't so impressed with Slade Gordon, even though he was pro-lumber and everything. But now you take somebody like Harry Merlo, when the rules changed to protect the forest and the old growth, he comes up with solutions and still is able to manufacture products, wood products. Some of it is wafer board, oriented strand board, and chipboard. We're using this stuff today. You see more of that than regular plywood. So here's a guy that's a problem solver, not just a problem creator. And then, we've got other problem solvers like Alan Savory trying to reduce desertification, and others that want wider buffers than what the Conservation Corps suggested in the 1930s to stop Dust Bowl, because the wider buffers allow insects to not become extinct. Beneficial insects. You do a monocrop, you're going to have monocrop insects like locusts and things. So you got to change it up a little bit. In the Dust Bowl days, they said, oh yeah, rotate the crops. There's a whole lot. We know a lot more. Just a matter of using it. Now, if you're going to cut down trees, I remember this one guy, he was able to get a homestead before the trees were cut on a pretty steep piece of property, a little knoll, had his house, his whole family. Then a few years later, they cut all the trees around his property. And then another 10 years later, all the stumps rotted. And then they had a heavy rain, washed his house and killed his family. He was the only survivor. And his extended family was there because it was a holiday. So that sucks. But then the logging company said it was an act of God. So let's say you're going to cut something. Now, maybe you ought to just cut it like this. Here's the mountain. Oh my gosh, it takes too much labor to do a zigzag down the mountain. We just rather cut the whole thing down. Well, that's what causes things to, the ground gets soaked and slides away. Sometimes it happens even when the conditions are right, the geology is right, even when it hasn't been cut. But 99% of the time it's because of that type of clear cutting. And of course, the fisherman here in our country says, oh yeah, leave a buffer for the streams. You're muddying up all the salmon eggs. So now it's ruining our salmon fishing. So we have a little more checks and balances. At least people have the right to say, hey, you're going too far here. Even if the company says, oh, it's easier for me to do it this way. You got to have rules and regulations. And just to send money overseas to a bunch of places where the people in charge and don't get rules and regulations, and you got the people at the bottom that don't have any collective bargaining to say, hey, this is ruining our environment, it's not going to help. So Alan Savory is another guy that I would say can come up with solutions if people listen to him. Now, I remember there was an almond grower in California. Yeah, almonds suck up a lot of water. I'm sorry to hear that. But in California, they're getting the bottom of the barrel sludge out of these old wells. And then they sometimes put it into a big containing retention, acres and acres retention of oil. They don't even line the pond. So does that need to happen to where the groundwater gets so bad the farmer's wife dies of cancer because she's exposed? Their drinking water and their shower water is exposed. The oil gets in there. I don't think that's quite right. So I don't know. So I don't know why the governor of California, allows bottom of the barrel sludge to be, ruining the groundwater. And he's saying, oh, the electric car and all this other wonderful stuff. Well, if we're going to use fossil fuel, start using the cleanest. Maybe we should be getting some more natural gas cars along with the electrical cars, have our eggs spread into a few more baskets. And when they said the Ross Perot, I liked him in a way until I found out he said to heck with the spotted owl. And so I didn't vote for him back in, when, he was pro-logging. And, even Merlo was kind of pro-logging, but he found ways to make and use products people were throwing away. And so we need to be less wasteful in this country. Now in China, they have these pesticides. These valleys where they use these pesticides, the bees are dead. So now the farmers got to go up and pollinate the trees, the pear trees, the cherry trees, or whatever, with a little brush. Do you think we can do that in this country? Because we're gonna no. The Chinese have far less rules than we do. Whether it's no scrubbers on coal burning plants or whatever. At least we have some scrubbers. Not that they might not be as good as scrubbers as they should be, but it's better. So we need the new World Conservation Corps that has teeth Now, Delhi, India, you can't even see across the street. It's like in a fog. Oh, English fog, but it's not English fog. It's so bad they decide, oh, we better not have the kids go to school. If they run out on the playground, they might die. So it's worse, or at least as bad as Los Angeles in 1970. So we gotta. I don't know why England doesn't say, "Hey, let's help you get some cleaner little engines than you're using right now, and maybe even some sewer treatment plants so that you don't pollute the holy Ganges so badly." Of course, one of the guys down there in India, because England kind of owes a little bit for the 400 years of, of cheap labor and resources, so maybe they could help out with the sewage treatment plants to get the ball rolling in the right direction in India. Because one of their officials says, "Oh, all we need is more rain to flush out the Ganges." That's ridiculous. But in the United States, even though we've cleaned up our act so much, we're still a throwaway, gluttonous, convenience society. Wasteful. And we got these ships because of the cheap labor, like this shirt. Well, I don't know, it's been a couple decades since the Nike folks said, "Oh yeah, these poor people building the shoes, are slave labor." Well, it's still going on. But it's it's the American public that needs to say, yeah, well, we'll make it here. Maybe it'll cost a little more in some cases, but we'll make it a real good quality. It'll last, and we'll become less wasteful and support less of these nasty ships burning bunker fuel going across the oceans. Now, the Native Americans weren't very wasteful. They used every bit of the buffalo. And sometimes, economically, we try not to be wasteful in a lot of ways. But as far as the convenience addiction that the Americans have, just if I want some joint support pills, I can have the Amazon deliver it. Or if the clothes I get from Amazon doesn't fit, I say take it back, and then more than half the time it just goes back into the dump somewhere, and so it's wastefulness, and it's just getting out of control. And I also think if you ask a Native American with some somewhat conservative values, there's some politicians that are conservative Native Americans, but they care about the environment. And I'm sure they would say, hey, the border? Oh, gosh, I wish we had border controls for the last 400 years. Maybe we wouldn't be as in a situation that we're in because it's out of control. But anyway, so as far as just throwing money to corrupt governments in third world nations without teeth, that's why I believe in the Conservation Corps, not only in this country, but worldwide. It'll make a difference for the longevity of the human race. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye.